monomyth is 100% mentally interactive. It is made on the template of a human life and how to turn inward and resolve the issues that are hurting us. The monomyth has purpose, but it doesn't sound that way because we create the stories looking outward. We don't know how those common motifs represent something in our lives. In this video, I'm going to cover that a little bit. It is also important to say that this is only found through self-discovery. There's no college teaching mythology or Bible colleges that are teaching what this template is right here. It's very hard to see. It's very old, and it takes a lot of work to get into it. So in this video, I want to talk about Deuteronomy as a monomyth. I'm going to look at and display a few things and show you what I'm looking at that shows common motifs between Deuteronomy and a lot of other Abrahamic stories. We're going to be looking for a crossing of the threshold and some other things right off the bat. But there's one number pattern that I want to identify here, that's something in the beginning that is at 8. There's a number 8. Let me show you what that is about. And what I want to do is identify what that 8 is. That 8 is going to equate to a couple of things. First, sin, what you've judged, circumcision. All of those are going to be analogous terms representing something in this pattern of 8. What the heck is that? This is very deep stuff, and it requires a lot of analysis. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Okay, let's look at a couple of things here. The first thing that's important to understand is what is a monomyth. And I'm going to use the Joseph Campbell material here, his template. Although his template isn't complete, what I'm going to do is use his template because it's well known. Joseph Campbell wrote this in the mid-40s, A Hero with 1,000 Faces. What it basically is that there's a template that is being followed. If you read through a story, you're going to have an individual that's being called. That's always the case. Somebody has to start the story. There's a called hero in the beginning. Sometimes, but not always. Sometimes this hero is going to not want to go. They're going to say, I'm not the right person. I'm too weak. I'm not something. I'm not smart enough. I don't talk right, or something like that. You should recognize that from Moses as he's being called on Mount Horeb. I don't speak right. And then there's a supernatural aid that comes along at the same time. Supernatural aid represents the knowledge of what to do when you get on the journey. Nobody really gets supernatural aid. What you need to do is change the frequency of memories. So the supernatural aid represents that. Knowledge is what that takes. I got a memory, I'm hurt, I have to heal. That's what the supernatural aid is. What does Moses get on Mount Horeb? He gets his staff right there. So he's denying the call. He's getting called, he's denying the call, saying, I don't even speak right. I'm not the right person. Supernatural aid. And then there's a crossing of the threshold that follows that. That represents turning inward to the mind, to the memories. What do we have? Crossing of the Red Sea. And in these stories, when we get into these monomyths, what we're going to see is that there's going to be somebody called, and right up front, there's going to be some kind of a threshold to cross. In most of these Abrahamic stories, it's going to be a river. All right, this can take a little while to understand, but the monomyth is a inward psychological pathway, a mental psychological path. It's holding stages of mental interaction for self-psychology. That is what the monomyth is. It's adventure. It is, if it's in religious genre, like we're talking about here, it's going to have different impacts when it's not understood. However, if it is understood, you're going to find out that regardless of where you go in the world and find that monomyth, they all are doing the same thing. It's the inward path to self-healing. Doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, going through the Bhagavad Gita, or Roman and Greek mythology, all of these. Okay, so if we know it's a psychological path, how does it work? You are the called hero. If you're the person that says, I'm going to turn inward and I'm going to heal myself, I'm tired of living this way, this stuff I'm carrying, my baggage sucks, I need to resolve it, you become the called hero. Most people aren't going to do that, so we've narrowed it down right here. This is not for the theist or the atheist. Those are like the extreme right and the extreme left wingers that just fight each other. They can't figure out that there's something in the middle. You go to the theist and talk to them about something in here. They call you an atheist and want you gone. You tell an atheist that there's something in here that's a psychological path. They call you a Jesus lover and tell you to get the hell out. The extremes sides, the atheists and theists, they don't get it. There's a middle path in here that is not religious. It's a psychological path. theist and atheist. It's a psychological pathway, like Buddhism. All right, the first thing I have up here is Joshua, and I'm going to bypass a lot of my notes. I'm just going to point out a few things. After the death of Moses, it's time to speak to Joshua. So Moses is an iteration of self that is passed on. We're going back on the adventure again. We become Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying. And it's very old stuff, but if you're following along, you just pretend like you're this person, and it all plays out in the theater of your mind, like a video game. Moses, my servant, is dead. That's previous iteration. Now go over this Jordan. What do we have? The Jordan River. You and all the people into the land which I give them, even to the children of Israel. These all represent inner self. And all this people unto the land which I do give to them. These are all of our memories and the emotional state of them. That's what all the children of Israel are. Every place in the sole of your foot shall tread upon shall I give to you, as I said to Moses. So this is the, what is this? This is the promise that everything here I give to you. That starts all the way back in Genesis. That is the reason for the covenant. That's what that is. That's the reason for circumcision. We'll get to that. From this wilderness and the Lebanon, even into the great the river Euphrates, and all the land of the Hittites. Okay, so we've got a called person here. We've got a river to cross. And look at what we have down here. The book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but that you shall meditate therein day and night, and that you may observe and do according to all that is written therein. This is the supernatural aid. You're getting a book. And what does it say? It shall not depart out of your mouth. Do it right, live right, don't deviate, for then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with you wherever you go. Okay, that is the higher awareness. It's always there. We don't know it, we don't interact with it. Here, pass through this host, he commanded the people, prepare your victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over this Jordan and go to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess. Okay, that should sound a little bit like you're going to cross over the Red Sea and go spend 40 years in the desert, or you're going to have a baptism and spend 40 days in the wilderness. What do we have? Prepare your victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over this Jordan and possess the land which the Lord your God gave you to possess. So you're going into your mind. That's your space. What else do we have here? Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to point that out. The story gets huge, but there's the upfront motifs. There's a calling. There's an iteration from one person to the next. There is a river to cross, a threshold to cross, and there is supernatural aid being given right there. Let's move to another one. All right, we're going to get to Ezekiel, and what we're going to find here, I'll just jump to the high points. These stories are very big, so I'm going to just try to hit the high points here. There's a lot of detail that's being overlooked, I can assure you. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month of the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Chebar. Look at that. And Chebar, this is meaningful to me, is repeated exactly 8 times in Ezekiel. Remember that 8 we were talking about? Yeah, we're going to get there still. And the heavens opened, and I saw visions of God. So here we have the connection with the higher awareness. God is calling. Or, in this case, I am looking at my higher awareness. I am not my memories. Why am I living through my memories? I can get outside of those memories, and that is where I should be. Here, this is it very literally. When you're tossing and turning at night, you wake up in the morning and you can't get to, you've got some mental turmoil of something that's unresolved. We get to a point when life gets complicated enough that happens to us naturally. When that turmoil is going on, there's periodically a voice that steps in and says, hey, it's very detached, and it's telling you, you gotta just let it go. It's a part of your head, but it's somewhere distant. It's stepping outside of those feelings, and it's telling you you gotta sleep. There's nothing you can do tonight. Why are you doing this? Sleep, relax. And if you make note, when you're experiencing that right there, you don't feel the emotions right there. That is connecting with God in the heavens right there. That's what that means right there. You need to connect with, we all need to connect with this higher self. Eckhart Tolle talks about that when he's tossing and turning at night. One night he had suicidal thoughts, and he realized he had this mental dialogue going on, and he heard himself say, I can't live with myself. And he was like, well, who is it that can't live with me? And as he began processing it, it's the same thing here. You realize I'm living through my memories. Now I'm at a point in time in life where I need to learn to disconnect from them and stop living through the memories. I want to reconnect with the higher self. That's what is happening at the beginning of all these. That connection with the Father, or, whatever later on in Joseph Campbell's, that happens before we cross the threshold. It happens right in the beginning, mentally. And the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th day of King Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly to the priest, the son of Buzi, very isolated, expressly unto the priest. Isolated person. How was Moses isolated? In a basket. In the land of the Chaldeans by the river Chebar, and by the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, and it goes through some detail here. I'm going to jump ahead. We're going to get down to chapter 2, and what we have is the supernatural aid. And you shall speak my words to them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious. You're getting instructions to go in and defeat the enemy, but the enemy is within. And when I looked, behold, a hand was sent to me, and lo, a roll of book was therein. And he spread it before me, and was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. That's your life. That's my life. Lamentations, mourning, and woe. Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, eat that you find. Eat this roll, and go speak to the house of Israel. Learn this material, and go turn inward and deal with the bad children of Israel. Those are the memories. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. And he said to me, Son of man, cause your belly to eat, and fill your bowels with this roll that I give you. Then I did eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. So there is a pretty extreme example of, like the other one, keeping the words in your mouth. This one is eat this. And where we have, then I came to them to the captivity of Tel Abib that dwelt by the river Chebar, and I sat there where they remained astonished among them 7 days. And then I rose and went forth to the plain, and behold, the glory of the Lord stood there as the glory which I saw by the river of Chebar, and I fell on my face. So we've had our river crossing in a very complex story, Ezekiel. What I'm going to do is read, I don't have this one on video or on my desktop. This is from the Lost Scriptures, the Bart D. Ehrman version. This is the Shepherd of Hermas. It's a non-canonical one, but it's following the pattern. The one who raised me sold me to a certain woman named Rhoda in Rome. After many years, I regained her acquaintance and began to love her as a sister. So right away, we're looking at a male and a female component here. Adam and Eve, there's in Abrahamic material, we're developing a mental hierarchy. The consciousness and the inner being. The inner being is going to be the female. The female is a product of the consciousness. When some time had passed, I saw her bathing in the Tiber River, and I gave her my hand to help her out of the river. So what we have here is that we started off as children, we live life, and we've kind of come separated. I love this person, now I find them later. This is now turning inward. Sounds like, in a way that's not quite Abrahamic. When time had passed, I saw her bathing in the Tiber River, and I gave her my hand to help her out of the river. When I observed her beauty, I began reasoning in my heart, I would be fortunate to have a wife of such beauty and character. This is all I had in mind, nothing else. When some time had passed, I was traveling to the countryside, glorifying the creations of God and thinking how great, remarkable, and powerful they are. This part of the individual contemplating here takes the place of the role, the eat this, the contemplate on this, stay with this day in and day night, this day in and day night, day in and night. Sorry. Okay, here the individual is already doing that without being given the role. They're out there meditating on it to begin with. So it's maintaining the pattern and motifs. You just have to know the patterns there. On the way, I fell asleep, and a spirit took me and carried me through a certain deserted place that was impassable, for the place was steep and split up by the courses of water. When I crossed the river, I came to level ground and bowed my knees and began to pray to the Lord and confessing my sins. Okay, you just cross the river, you're turned inward, and you're beginning to resolve the issues. We got a monomyth. You can read it off the bat because it's fitting those motifs. All right, Deuteronomy is a little bit older style. Let's take a look at something here, though. These are the words which Moses spoke unto all Israel on this side of the Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab. This is in your mind. We're Moses. If you're inward, I gotta face inward and start doing some housework. It's a psychological path. They're 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir and to Kadesh Barnea. And it came to pass in the 40th year in the 11th month on the first day of the month, and Moses spoke to the children of Israel. Now there's something encoded in the numbers here. And it's saying it's a pure state person, but it's time to turn in and heal, is what this is saying. And it's hard to find that in here. And let's see. On this side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, became Moses to declare this law, saying, The Lord our God spoke unto us in Horeb, saying, You have dwelt long enough in this mount. So it's time to move on from wherever you are. Turn inward, and take your journey. Journey is repeated 8 times. Deuteronomy, journey exactly 8 times. So we've got to make that inward trek. 8. 8 is important. We're going to get to that. 8 means something very specific. 8 is going to be a psychologically interactive step. Circumcision is going to be mental. All right, behold, I've set the land before you. Go and possess the land. This is go in and take care of your own mind. You take over. Flood your world. Go destroy it. You've got all these things inside. We get down here to the end of the chapter, and where do we have in the chapter 2? Then we turned and took our journey into the wilderness by way of the Red Sea, as the Lord spoke unto me, and we compassed Mount Seir many days. So we turned. Where do you turn? You turn inward. You take a journey into your mind, crossing a threshold. Supernatural aid does not appear to be in this story in the beginning, but we're still dealing with Moses and the 10 Commandments from Exodus. So the supernatural aid, the staff, as well as, well, what do we have? We got the ark, which represents the story itself. Many people carry it, but few look inside of it. And there's people that deny it, the enemies of it. There's people that carry it. That's the story. There's people that deny the story. There's people that carry the story. There's people that interpret the story. This is all metaphor. To me, without going into further detail, because they do get really huge, this right off the bat, it's a monomyth. It's starting off with the same thing. There's a called person. They've got to cross a threshold. They've got to turn inward. They've got this covenant. You've got to go in and destroy whatever this is. The people have gone bad. Something has gone bad. Somehow there's good elements and bad elements. It's all about an internal strife for self-healing. Now, what is the 8? We have to go back to Genesis, actually, but I've got everything lined up right here. I've just consolidated some things here in the beginning of Deuteronomy. This is from Wikipedia. Circumcision is near universal among Jews. The mitzvah of circumcision on the 8th day of life. It's considered among the most important commandments in Judaism. Barring extraordinary circumstances, failure to undergo the rite is seen by followers of Judaism as leading to a state of kareth, the extinction of the soul and the denial of a share in the world to come. So, they're saying, get it done. Where does it first show up? In Genesis 17, during the calling of Abraham. God is promising Abraham that everything is between yours. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you and their generations for an everlasting covenant. This is simply the higher awareness saying, your mind is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Everything that you accumulate is yours. All of your seed in their generations for an everlasting covenant. This is a cause and effect. And I will give unto you and unto your seed after you the land which you are a stranger in the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession. Okay, so that's the promise. Now, What does he do down here then? He says, "This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your seed after you. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant between me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house." Okay, is there any doubt about what circumcision is? We're talking about physical circumcision here, the cutting off of the foreskin of the penis for males. In some cultures, there's somehow circumcision for females. I'm aware of it, but I don't know how that works. I know that in some cultures it's strictly forbidden to do that. You do not desiccate or, destroy the human body for religious reasons or something like that, that God would not ask you to cut off a piece of your foreskin in order to keep this promise. But that's about what it comes down to. When you think about it, if you're trying to keep some sort of a ritual in place, what can you cut off on a person that's going to not interfere with their life? The foreskin of the penis is about the only thing you can cut off, and it's not going to affect your capacity to go work and do things like that. So anyway, we know what that is. However, it's an analogous term that means something different. When we take it to the mental realm, it's something different. Do we take it to the mental realm? Watch this. All right, I'm just going to pop these up and talk about them. They should sound weird. This is in Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verse 16. "Circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked." Circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart. Down in chapter 30, verse 6, "And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. The Lord your God will circumcise your heart." Does that sound like cutting off the foreskin of the penis? Circumcise the heart. Okay, let's look at a couple of others. In the book of Luke, chapter 1 and 2, "And it came to pass that on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias, after the name of his father. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Jesus, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb." Okay, so we've got our 8-day circumcision. Gospel of Thomas, verse 53, "His disciples said to him, 'Is circumcision beneficial or not?' And he said to them, 'If it were beneficial, their father would beget them already circumcised from their mother. Rather, the true circumcision in spirit has become completely profitable.'" Okay, he went from heart to spirit. Circumcision from their mother. He said, yeah, if circumcision was beneficial, physically, you'd be born that way. If you didn't need your foreskin, you wouldn't have it. The true circumcision of the spirit. Paul, "For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if you be a breaker of the law, your circumcision is made uncircumcision." All right, let's unwrap his verbiage here. It's a little thick. "For circumcision profiteth if you keep the law." So in other words, cutting off the foreskin is okay if you keep the law. But if you don't keep the law, your circumcision is no longer circumcision. Okay, so we know the foreskin does not grow back. What could he mean? This is metaphorical. It goes on, "Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteous of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision?" Let's unwrap that one. "You who are not circumcised, who do not have your skin cut off, keep the law. Then the fact that you are uncircumcised counts for circumcision. It doesn't matter whether you're physically missing the foreskin of your penis or not. If you keep the law, you're circumcised." What are we talking about? The heart, circumcision of the heart, of the spirit. "And thou shalt not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge you, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law." These get thick. You have to stop and ask yourself what they mean, but they're mentally interactive. "And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature." Okay, so we're born with a foreskin. If you're born with a foreskin naturally, if it fulfill the law, judge thee who by the latter and circumcision does transgress the law. So do you judge people who have been circumcised, but they don't follow the law anyway? For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. Right there, bingo. We're not talking about physical circumcision. Cutting off the foreskin of your penis is going to be for some other reason. But as far as God is concerned and the religion is telling us, it's a waste of time. The circumcision is a psychological process. What was the circumcision to begin with? A token of the promise. Do you need to provide a token every time? I'm going to work today. I'll be back tonight. Here's some money. Here's something that promises my return. At some point, it's like, what if you just leave or not? What does the token mean? What matters is what you do, not what you say you're going to do, not the physical things that you do as a show of here's what I've done. Now inside, I'm not there. It's got to be at a deeper level. The physical thing is what you do when you don't understand it. You're just carrying it. But he is a Jew. That's a in this case, an enlightened person, a guru, a sage. But he is a sage, which is one inwardly. And circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, and not in the letter. It's in the heart. It's of letting things go. Why would they use circumcision? Circumcision is about the penis. The penis is about reproducing. Reproducing in the spiritual world means judging, means having a judgment, a decision. I hate this. I am ashamed of that. I feel hatred. I feel anger. Any manner of those things right there fits this category. Those are the things that happen at first sin. What happens in Garden of Eden happens, Day 7? 7 and 3 are right there. Day 7 is when we are naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. Then what happens? First sin. That steps into 8. 8 is where first sin happens. Circumcision is, first sin is what then? It's becoming old enough now that you naked unashamed in the Garden of Eden represents a childhood state of bliss before we started having derogatory experiences and memories that made us go from our happy childhood self to I am now reluctant, I don't like that person, I don't trust them, I'm afraid of them, we become something different. That's first sin. Don't make it sound like you did something wrong. Understand that it's a judgment that we're living through and that we then cover ourselves up metaphorically. Man and woman didn't go from running around naked to covered back then. What if you're not sinning now? Should you run around naked? No, we wear clothes. It's spiritual naked, spiritual coverings. I have nothing to hide. You can know anything about me. And that doesn't matter. The one I got molested, the things I've done, the things that I've had to resolve in my life, all of that stuff. You can know all of it and it doesn't bother me. I've got nothing to hide anymore. That's naked. Spiritually naked. Drunk is a way to feel something different. Okay, so what happens here? The reference is to the idea that there must have been some sort of a union that happened in it that caused a judgment, an offspring. These two people angrily fought, and now even though they never knew each other before then, they see each other regularly and they always hate each other. Oh, there's the person that this and there's a person that did that. So there's an offspring that happened as a result of this union, of a marriage of what? It's not really a marriage. It's a marriage of experience, but it doesn't have to be positive. It could be negative experiences. And as a result, there's an offspring that through cause and effect continues to emerge the same way. So the idea of Day 8 being the day that you circumcise, what that means, Day 8 is now the day that you need to begin resolving the issues, the judgments that you have. That's the true circumcision of heart, the forgiveness of heart, the removal of the mote in the eye, the resolving of the ought against your brother. All of those things are going to be the same thing. Circumcision is not about clipping off the penis foreskin, although physically mine was. That's the way it was treated. I didn't have boys. I never had to make that decision. I don't remember it, but I'm sure it was painful. I'm sure I cried. I'm sure any kid would. It's something like that. But you grow up and you don't remember it because you don't have the mental cognition back then you experience pain, but you don't remember that you experienced it. Okay. Anyway, as far as the Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy is obviously a monomyth of a style where it's still Moses. Moses hadn't died yet. But you can see the elements that are there. But also that whole 8, you can see that they're patterning something in there. That journey, it's time to go the 8, time to cross the river, all of those. It's time to go resolve that stuff. Crossing the river, Chebar said it's 8 times. Yep, you're going in to resolve those issues. You're going on your journey repeated 8 times. Yep, you're going after those things. All of those that come in as 8 like that are meant to tell you, if you had that story memorized. Today we are so out of touch with those stories. We think we know them. You got the big old Bible here. You read it. They had the story memorized, and they knew how many times nouns and verbs were repeated within the story. If you know that, you can see code in there. That you understand how the stories are made, and they're following a template and a numbering pattern that if you figure out why these repeats are happening, it's the pathway out. It's the pathway to inner peace. It's the pathway to the true God, the God of Spinoza, the God that you connect with in your higher awareness. All right. Hope this was interesting. Questions, comments? See you in the next video.